Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my AM reading video for Friday, February 17th, 2023 on a Saturday. This is always a doozy for me with the sun coming in. It's such a great time for me to film, but the sun's like, it's my time to shine, or at least in the winter it is. Maybe things will be different in other seasons, but here I am obstinately sitting in the light like this. So hopefully it isn't too distracting. It's been a bit of a week for me, a bit of a big writing week. I had my monthly beta reading session with the sci-fi and fantasy novel writing group I'm a part of, and we got through the next little bit of our chapters. I think we're all roughly near the end or around the end of Act 1. And I also had, or have, I'm in this, in-between space of where I'm filming and posting. But anyway, on Saturday, it is another critique session with my writer salon that I'm part of. And particularly, I belong to the finishers group of the writer's salon, where we make ourselves quarterly goals. And part of that is we have the option of sharing work with each other that, we've been working on this past quarter, or this is like the midway point in the quarter, I suppose. We'll have another one in a month. Lots of critique sessions. This week I also acquired a Ruggable, which is a particular rug company, and I wanted this 3x5 runner for my hallway here. I think my parents call it a millennial company, I guess, because my sister and brother-in-law used this company, and now I have. So I'll link to them down below in case you're interested. And yeah, other than that, the usual of work and reading, getting through my reading goals, and I have some things to share with you today. Starting with my new tradition of reading the next short story in this collection. It's an anthology called Oi Caramba, and an anthology of Jewish stories from Latin America, edited by Ilan Stavins. Anyway, the story that I read this week is A Nice Boy from a Good Family by Anna Maria Shua. This follows Lorita, who is vacationing with her family in Uruguay near Montevideo, and she is going on dates with men, and they seem to be a bit questionable, all of them. She recently got out of a relationship with a man who broke it off with her because his, real girlfriend came into the area, and, he couldn't have them meeting each other or seeing each other. And so then she decides, I think, through the help or whim of her parents, to go out with this nice guy from the good family. And his name is Kalniki Kamiansky, and he's named for his grandfather, who apparently was a big deal in Russia. And we're getting into some associations here about how Lorita and Kalniki are part of the Jewish Latinx community, from refugees, immigrants, and so forth, in this case from the Russian Empire. And so she goes out with this guy, and he's kind of first the date kind of does feel nice that he takes her to a nicer restaurant than everyone else. And at their next date, they go to the beach, although in that situation, it seems like Kalniki is trying to nudge things into, the sexual direction that she might not be ready for yet. She says, I want to come to your swanky apartment and see the nice view, but I don't want to have sex with you. And then he goes into this big spiel about the woman he actually loved and can't be with because she's not Jewish. And so it seems like this relationship, even though it was supposed to, I guess, be a positive one, it isn't so positive after all. And as much as he had a nicer, I guess, presentation than the other men that Lorita has been with, it comes down to, you're not, doing what I want and providing, this relief from this old romance I used to have. And it centers so much around Kalniki's sort of obsession with his grandfather, which might be missing him more than being, weirdly obsessed with his lineage or past. But then it also, goes into those sort of sexist stereotypes like, oh, Jewish women, why should I be so into them or something? And anyway, it certainly doesn't make dating look great no matter who you are. So hopefully you can have fun on your vacation without it. I gave up. I closed my slatty blinds over there, hoping this might do something positive for the lighting, but not sure. So anyway, The first book I finished this week is Days of Awe by Lauren Fox. This is one of the books that's been on my Goodreads TBR for such a long time that I've made it my top of the Goodreads resolution for this year, that I put it on the TBR at a certain time so that it was at the top of the list. And now I'm reading it, and I'm particularly excited to have read this one because I played with it in my page 112 tag in the past, and I didn't choose it, so I'm always excited when I then get to the book anyway. And this one was pretty good. I think it was better than I even was hoping, although then I started arguing a little with it. And maybe that's unfair the way I'm arguing with it, but let's talk about what the book is about. This is a contemporary literary story following Izzy. Izzy is a 43-year-old woman, roughly, because the book goes a little back and forth in time, but in the present-day story, I believe she is largely 43 years old, and she is reeling from a bunch of losses. There's a big, I think, sort of very tangible loss, which is the loss of her best friend, Josie, who died in a car crash. And then around the same time, she and her husband are getting separated, and her daughter is becoming estranged, sort of a surly preteen. And so Izzy is dealing with all sorts of loss, and even like kind of sort of losing Josie's husband, who was a friend of hers since before either of them knew Josie. So the book is non-linear, and Izzy is basically looking back. In large part, she's looking back on the arc of Josie's life, and we're looking into what happened with Josie and what, you might assume at the beginning of the novel is a simple car accident. Seems like there might have been some more going on with that, and certainly Josie was having some significant problems in her life. And of course, she's also, looking back on her relationship with her husband, especially as her mother is pushing her to start dating again, or occasionally she looks back on her relationship with her daughter as that changes as well. So it's very non-linear, and I feel like, to me, that kind of worked against it ultimately, because I just wasn't sure where people were in the present-day storyline with their arcs and their feelings and all of that. I guess I had a lot of trouble with the husband, for sort of how judgmental he was of her, and even, kind of sort of abandoning her. That's not really fair. I think it was more in a way of a joint decision for them to separate, but he did seem very uninterested in her, legitimate grief in losing a friend to a tragic, incident, this car crash. It just seems kind of stunning to me. Maybe I'm having some biased feelings about how much female friendships seem to be devalued, so that, this relationship with her husband is so centered about being the important relationship of her life, and it should be, and it's a tragedy to lose that relationship and to have to deal with that emotionally. I'm sure that has to be really difficult, but I'm still kind of struck by the fact that it's like this death of this woman when she, is in her prime, kind of takes a back seat in a way to that. And I don't know if I'm sort of being hard on the book for something that might, if it went my way, go into melodrama of Izzy truly, dissecting or like us living in the emotional headiness of Josie's downfall, as it were. But it almost feels like that was the arc of the story. Like, we start with this idea of Josie, and then we end with a different idea of Josie. So that's the biggest character arc, the most linear character arc. But it's all backstory, and it just got me to thinking, like, wait, we're a year into the future now after Josie died, so Izzy wouldn't be thinking of things in terms of, I just found this out, because she knew all of this before, and it almost seemed convenient that she'd be thinking about these parts of Josie, just at the time when it would be good for the reader to know this stuff. I don't know. I feel like I'm probably being too nitpicky. I also do feel like when you read the novel, there's a wonderfully subtle and nuanced portrayal of grief, and this character who is kind of navel-gazing and self-involved, but also kind of witty in how she sees the world, or maybe I'm just seeing a little too much of myself in her. And there's just a lot in here that I feel like is great about the subtleties and realities of literary fiction and probing relationships, but I just can't help but wish that, could Josie have been more centered of the relationship between Josie and Izzy? I don't know. I also kind of wish the daughter was a little less of an archetypal surly teenager. It feels like the most like realistic or individual character dimension they gave to her was her being traumatized by the death of Josie, which, you know, is good because it does seem like that would be traumatizing, like this sudden car accident. But it feels like the rest of Hannah's life is like, you know, just you know, surly and angry at my mother just because. And it's like, that's not how teenagers are. They react to real things in their lives. You know, they have real relationships and real pressures at school and extracurriculars and all of that. So, you know, like so many, you know, adult literary or just adult anything novels, the kids never, you know, or don't always feel the most fully dimensional. So I can't even only blame Fox for that. In fact, sometimes I feel like gave some interesting backstory tidbits about Hannah. So yeah, that's where I am. The other big thing I just quibble about greatly with this book is the stereotypically awful therapists and some stereotypically eye-rolly bad, you know, relationship stuff with the therapists, and that's never going to be for me. There is also some Jewish content in this book, which it was interesting, you know, with these sorts of books where Judaism isn't necessarily the major focus of the book or the lives of the characters. It's interesting to see how it plays out. It is even in the title a bit, because the title is a reference to a transitionatory period between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and in fact it is very much supposed to be a period where you're sort of between life and death and like doing the actions about, you know, turning over a new leaf to a new year. And so Izzy and also Mark, Josie's husband, are like the only two Jews in this Midwestern town, it feels like, and they knew each other since they were kids, and Izzy actually introduces Josie to Mark after Izzy and Josie start working together at a middle school, and Izzy's mother is a Holocaust survivor. I guess, you know, that term can be kind of loose sometimes because she was a refugee who came to America from Germany just before the Holocaust, and in fact lost most of her family in the Holocaust. And there's this sort of overarching thing with the mother Helene about her sort of anxiety about you know, being betrayed like that and vicious anti-Semitism. And so when, you know, they meet new people, like one of her first questions is, would they hide us in an attic or that sort of thing. And Izzy grew up with some Jewish education, so she has some knowledge and Jewish associations, but they don't seem to be all that central to her. So that's my, you know, obligatory analysis of the Jewish content of this book. So yeah, I think overall it was a good book. I enjoyed it. It was well written. I still kind of wish that, I don't know, would there be a way to probe Josie's life and Josie's relationships without being melodramatic, but also that it didn't feel quite as dismissive as it does sometimes here? That would be something I'd kind of be interested in, and maybe a little bit more like of an actual character individuality for Hannah. But yeah, there we go. And I am still in the middle of this short story collection, Jerusalem Beach by Iddo Gefen. Feeling a little less optimistic about this than I was last week, although to be fair, I actually still have a fair bit of this collection in front of me. I am very much hoping to finish it this weekend, because I got lots more to be reading. We're over halfway through the month, you know, and chop chop. But anyway, so this is a collection of short stories by this 20-something Israeli guy, and I really liked the first couple, and in all honesty, you know, I liked the next couple as well, but the big one I didn't like so much as the one I most recently read, which is called The Girl Who Lived Near the Sun. And this is one of those, I feel like, lazily done conceits where a literary fiction writer writes science fiction as some sort of allegory. The purpose of the story is to discuss, like, young adult malaise and ennui, and like, you know, who am I, perhaps like after leaving the army, or at least before starting, I'm thinking in terms of the Israeli trajectory, but like, who am I as a young adult? I'm about to start college, and what do I want to study, and who am I, like, beyond the expectations of my family, and yada yada. And we don't have to have it be set in this completely unrealistic setting where he is traipsing around the universe or the solar system and ends up on Neptune with this girl where it seems like for a while he can't contact anyone. For some reason he visits her on Neptune even though a shuttle only like arrives twice a year there to pick up and drop off. Never mind that, you know, we're treating Neptune like it's just another, you know, neighborhood like in the boonies versus, you know, not a place where people can actually live and survive. I just, you know, I'm a science fiction lover and I want to read about like science fiction that is grounded in some sense of reality in terms of space travel. I don't want this really lazy, you know, slapdash thing on top of a story that really doesn't need to be set in outer space, no matter how the characters feel about it. It just all feels very lazy and underdeveloped. And I wish that, you know, he had developed these characters in a realistic setting the way he had with so many of his others, rather than, you know, just indulge in this fantasy, which is, you know, just so lazily and sloppily done. I just didn't like it. So hopefully the rest of the collection will be uphill from there, and I still want to make a video where I discuss this collection versus another Israeli short story collection that I haven't started yet, so, so there we are with that. The next book I started, speaking both of short story collections and the page 112 tag, is this one. This is The Lightness of Water and Other Stories by Rhonda Browning-White. This is the book I chose in my most recent page 112 tag to read, so I'll link that video down below. This is a very short story collection about characters and situations in Appalachia, mostly in West Virginia. And I'm liking it so far. I'm a few stories in. Hopefully, knock on wood, I'll like the second half just as much. I'm also hoping to finish this one over the weekend. I feel like maybe the first story is the strongest for me so far, kind of similar to the Iddo Gefen collection too. It's called Bondservant, and it takes place in this small town in rural West Virginia where a company has come in to do chopping off the tops of mountains, basically, you know, for resources to sell, and it is having all sorts of negative effects on the town. You know, for anybody who's mining inside the mountains, it's extremely dangerous work. And then there's just all sorts of health stuff that's coming, and contamination of the water and all of that that's affecting everyone in the town. And we're following this main character, whose name I guess I'll just say I'm kind of forgetting because she's in the first person anyway. She is this young 20-something woman who is completely emaciated and might have something akin to Crohn's disease, because she keeps comparing her body to that of her father-in-law who is dying of Crohn's disease. And, you know, it all seems very connected to what's happening in the mining. Her husband Jasper is a roofer in this mining operation, which is one of the most dangerous jobs. He's also like in his 20s somewhere, but he's like hunched over and lined, like, you know, aged by at least 10 years, and randomly or casually throws into conversation how, you know, a piece of the mountain almost collapsed on him and, you know, the people around him. It's just one of those things. And so this narrator on her day off is taking care of her father-in-law, Paul, who is nearing the end of his life and is refusing any more hospital treatment. And as she steps in on him on her day off, he divulges to her this plan that he's reading from the Bible, basically something that he interprets to be about being a steward of the earth and fighting against people who want to harm the earth. And he takes this into the direction of eco-terrorism, that he wants to, he has this dynamite and, you know, an old army jacket, and he's going to go into the mines and blow it up. And he's like trying to get her to help him to drive him there and like sort of distract people so no one's in the mine when he goes in there. It's supposed to be near a shift change time, I believe, but like it's his whole idea about how he will blow up all the mining materials, and it'll be too much of a hassle for the company to start anew, and Jasper and the wife will, you know, get his insurance money and will be able to move away from this place, which is just completely poisoned by now. And she's sitting there in this, you know, horror about the situation, you know, not only about his idea and also about everything that they're suffering. There's also an OxyContin subplot where he is siphoning off some of, the prescription from the doctors for Jasper to sell, and that, would offer some income to Jasper and his wife, because, the Oxycontin addiction is such a big deal, especially in rural parts of America, it seems, or in a lot of places in America, I think. Yeah, I just thought it, the writing and the characterization, it was just so richly done that I felt like it really evoked a time and a place in this situation. It was so tragic, but so nicely done. Maybe my least favorite story is called All Grown Up, which is about the birthday party. It centers around the birthday party of this young 10-year-old girl who loves cooking and baking, and her parents, I think she is from a lower class or lower middle class background, and her parents scrounged to, buy her these really nice mixing bowls and, some books on cooking and baking. And she herself has made herself this lovely German chocolate cake. And then her party is basically interrupted by her drunken uncle, Billy, who comes in and basically accidentally makes a whole mess of things, where he topples into the table and the cake goes flying and the mixing bowls go flying and crash. And so it's supposed to be this whole thing, and there's a little bit of tension in it where, she's excited to see him at first and doesn't really understand what's going on, and her parents are very tense. Obviously his alcoholism has been an issue, and they're concerned about, where he is, and he's somewhere between being exuberant and obstinate and feeling bad, and mostly he's just, inebriated and beside himself. And, it was a very slice of life, and I guess I kind of wish it was a longer story that more deeply delved into the characters. But so in terms of being my least favorite, it's just there was the least amount to grasp onto there. But, it was still, a slice of life. So yeah, from there, I'm hopefully going to be finishing this collection today, and I will be reporting back in my next AM reading video. And finally, on audio, I am listening to this book. This is KEATS by Lucasta Miller. It is a biography of the Romantic poet John Keats, as centered through the dissection of 9 of his poems and 1 epitaph. And that is all I will be telling you about this book at present. I will zip my lips because I am reading this book as an official judge of the BookTube Prize. The BookTube Prize was started by Robert at Barter Hordes. It is a way for those of us in the literary book community to judge the best in literary fiction and nonfiction that was published in the US the year before. We are at the beginning of the 2023 judging round, where we are judging the octafinals round, and I am judging Group H, where I have 6 books on my ballot, and at the end of March I have to rank them so that the top 3, collectively from the whole group of judges, will move on to the next round. So yeah, if you would like to know my preliminary thoughts about my ballot or any other information about the BookTube Prize, I will have links down below. So that about covers it for me now. In the US, we are in the midst of a long weekend for President's Day, and that's kind of exciting and relieving for me, although it does seem like I've heaped a bunch of stuff on to myself in terms of chores or in terms of reading and writing goals. So, there's never a quiet moment, I suppose. I'm just hoping it's not too overwhelming so that I can get that stuff done and make a dent in that stuff, but also have some downtime to really enjoy some time off, a little bit of a break from the grind of the work week. Also, I'll be back on this channel sometime this week with my book haul. It's a little earlier in the month than I usually do my book haul, but I have all the books I think I'm going to acquire this month, and I feel like I also want to give myself more time to do reading for my Israeli short story collection video, which will now be near the end of the month. So anyway, stay tuned. So I hope all of you are enjoying your weekends as well, no matter how long or short they may be, or whenever you can accrue some downtime for reading and other pursuits. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.